Hey all, in this video I'm going to be talking about GVG attack and defense. I'm going to be focusing on how to deal with nasty toxin setups and how to make your defense difficult to defeat. Now this is the main GVG deck, the Golems deck. Basically your defense needs to be built to counter this deck, as this is the main deck players seem to use. I'm sure you're all familiar with this deck. The supercharged buff increases attack by 2500%. This basically just kills anything. There's the ultimate form. I managed to get that up to 2 stars and awakened twice. When I get more Dark Wisps, I will be awakening that again. These 3 cards all spawn power gems that are doubled when under the supercharged buff, and that's just another ultra rare. Because of that massive damage boost and that these cards all fill the grid with power gems, this takes down pretty much any defense really easily, as long as you can survive the first defender. Now let me test this out on someone on my friends list. As you can see, this is a red and blue mix. Here we go. So this deck is really easy to use against most defences. As long as you don't die on the first defender, you can swap in a revive card if needed. Match anything like that, then use one of the ultra rares to get the damage boost up. This also removes most status effects from your team, so the gem silence will disappear now. Use the other 3 cards like so, and then there we go, defender defeated. And because of the supercharged buff, power gems are doubled on the next turn, filling the grid up with power gems again, allowing you to rip through the second defender without any real problems. On this turn you need to use one of the ultra rares again to get the supercharged buff up. And that's all you have to do to defeat most defences. So the question is, how do you stop this team? Well, after I've defeated this opponent, I will show you a few ways and then show you how to counter the defence. Onto the 4th defender now. Again, full grid of power gems. This should be defeated really easily. There we go, last turn, and then that's done. There we go. So as you saw, that was really easy. However, let's go on to my defense. This defense is specifically built to counter the Golems deck. Let me show you why. So here's the Golems deck. So the first defender you saw only has 2.2k defense, or power should I say. That might seem like a strange defender, however, let me show you what happens. It automatically dies on turn 1. Then the chaos effect carries over to the next card, so that messes up the grid. You've got 2 more turns of that. Now this is the second defender. Now this is the problem one for this team, as this has a Toxin debuff. This blocks the ultra rare. So now when I do this, even though I'll get damage immunity from that attack, I have not got the supercharged buff. So the power gems are not doubled, and there's no massive damage boost. Meaning that I can hardly even damage this defender. And yes, it's just knocked me straight out. I'll just show you that again. You can't use the other ultra rare as that is blocked by Toxin. Also, that makes it difficult to keep up turn delay as well, as the grid is shuffled for the next 2 turns. So the Golems deck on its own cannot defeat this defense. I'll try something different this time, maybe. Try using all of them and that. As you can see, there's nowhere near enough power gems again. I can't use that card as it's blocked, so that's it, I'm defeated. Nothing I can do. Alright, so how do you take out a team like this? Let's have a look at the actual team first. This is the mothership. This is as weak as I can possibly make it. I want this card to die on the first turn, so the player cannot use the ultra rare on turn 2 to get the supercharged buff up. If that was stronger, then the player would be able to use damage immunity, get that supercharged buff up, and then take out the second defender with ease. This is the problematic one. Relentless Toxin X. This one has counter-attack. You will see why I've put a counter-attack warden in position 3 once I use my other team to take out this defense. This is an off-color warden. This is mainly in case someone goes in with a water attack team. This has dodge on it. Dodge is actually surprisingly effective. It adds an element of luck to the battle. You never know if your attack's going to hit against a dodge warden. Then finally, this one has fear. This is the most powerful warden. However, if the player has got this far, they're likely to defeat that without any problems. There's mainly the second and third warden that I am relying on to stop the attacker. So this is the team I use to counter a Toxin setup like this. So just have one ultra rare this time. Now this card here is incredibly useful. I have ascended it just for the extra health and damage. The reason this is so useful, firstly it counters Toxin, and secondly It has a skill that removes all enemy debuffs. So I highly recommend using this on your team against a difficult Toxin setup. Now this is a Dragoon. This is used to increase the damage and health of the other cards. I want to specialise this. Probably won't go for that specialisation. Have a look at the other ones. That's quite a good one. It's the same as the 3 damage dealing cards, or should I say gem spawning cards, from the main Golems deck. Yeah, that's pretty much useless. Wouldn't go for that one. I think this would be the one I end up going for. 6 power gem 4s and increases commander attack. I think that might be the most useful specialisation out of all of them. You already get quite a lot of gems. I have most of the items for that. I just need a few more of the white stones at the bottom, and then I'll be able to specialise that. This card, a very old card. It's a turn delay card. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. Delays the enemy's turn by 2. Can be used whenever you've matched 20 gems. 1 turn cooldown. And finally, this card here is the Glorious Golems. This is the ultimate form from the Golems deck. So here we go. As you can see, it all relies on this card here. This has the Toxin counter and the Mass Dispel. Without that, I would not be able to defeat this team. The turn delay card is also very useful. So here we go. Let's see how I get on this time around. So the first defender, again, I want this to die immediately. That's why it's so weak. Well, there we go, it's dead. Now we move on to the second defender. I have a Toxin counter, so Toxin may counter, so I'm going to gamble with this card. This may or may not work. That's a damage immunity card. If this does not work, then I'll have to rely on turn delay. Let's see. Toxin did not counter. So now I'm going to use turn delay and try and take this out the more difficult way. Just going to use a card there to get a few more power gems. I just need to make sure I have enough gems on the turn delay card so I can actually use it. Toxin did not counter, so I'm going to get rid of Toxin and now try again. I am relying on the Warden to counter, though. Once the Warden counters Toxin, I'll be able to defeat this defender. It might take quite a long time, though. Just be warned. As that card has quite a long cooldown, the other way I can do this is if Toxin counters twice in a row. As you can see, this is much harder. One counter. Let's see if I can get that to happen again. If Toxin counters again, then I've basically beaten this Warden. There we go. So now I've got my supercharged buff up. This should be easy. So the third Warden is counter-attack. This should die instantly now I've got supercharged buff up. I use that just in case. However, if someone defeated the second defender while Toxin was still active, they would lose any potential damage immunity and they could die on this card anyway. As you know, turn delay does not block counter-attack. That still works anyway. So that's why counter-attack is in position 3 in case someone defeats the second Warden without having damage immunity up. So this should die instantly now. There we go. Now the fourth Warden, dodge. I'm going to use that, but I'm also going to use turn... No, I'll use turn delay next turn. Wow. Wow, did you see that? It actually dispelled it. So this should be easy now. I'm very surprised. That little card there, I believe, dispelled dodge. This is the final Warden. I'm going to use that just in case it doesn't kill it. The power is quite high on this card. And there we go. It did defeat it. I have defeated my defense. So that's how you play against a difficult setup like this. So the other thing you can do with your defense is put a high-powered flatliner in position 1. This may stop some teams, but it needs to be very, very high-powered for this to work. However, if the attacker can defeat that Warden on turn 1, it's not going to be very effective. This I consider to be the most effective setup, even though it can be defeated by the method I just showed you. So let's have a look at the Wardens. Which ones actually dispel Toxin? You really need a Warden. The counter rate is better with those. So there's a choice of a few. This one here dispels Toxin, but the battle skill is not especially good. The Mouse King also dispels Toxin. This is what I was using before I got this card. The Mass Dispel skill is very, very useful. There's a couple of other ones that counter Toxin. Again, the battle skills on these are not especially good. That's not bad. Cooldown 3 turns and 1 turn delay on it. That's maybe one to consider. There's a really old one here. I think that about covers GVG attack and defense. I hope that was helpful. If you do have any questions regarding this, feel free to let me know in the comments. Remember that no defense is 100% foolproof though. Skilled players or skilled GVG players will be able to set up a team to take out pretty much any defense. However, building a defence to counter the Golems deck is a good idea, since that is basically the most powerful GVG deck. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for watching.